The Buccaneers have a massive decision to make. So last night's game was awesome. Thank you to all those who attended the live stream, and was a pretty brutal first half, but turned into quite the entertaining second half, where there was obviously a lot of discussion points, particularly around the quarterback position, where we must get into. I'm Sebastian, the Buccaneers Digest. Welcome back, everybody. A warm welcome. Victory Sunday for those who are watching, who are Bucs fans. And there's a lot to talk about. Again, like I was mentioning, we had a lot of fun on the stream. Everyone was, expecting a certain amount of play from the starters. Obviously, defensive starters were a lot more impressive than the offensive starters. Bucky Irving looked good, but Baker-wise didn't really get any reps in besides throwing some screen passes, so not much to really look at there. But the real story is the backup quarterback position. Again, this time, Basilek not playing last night. It was between Jalon Daniels and Jake Browning for getting basically most of the game, where Browning took the first half and Daniels took the second half. Bucs won, but not really because of Browning. So we'll be getting into the performances of the quarterbacks and why everyone's already saying QB2 is now a major decision point. And not just that, but if the Bucs decide to keep three quarterbacks on the roster, they are going to have to make some decisions about some other roster spots they may have to sacrifice. So we'll get into all of that here in the video. Make sure to subscribe. We are going for 5,000 subscribers by the time we reach the beginning of the season. So that's about 3 weeks away. So by the time we're facing the Bengals and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, let's try and get us to 5,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who's already subscribed. And let's just jump right into this. So yes, the big piece of news. Jalon Daniels, once again, the big winner from last night. I mean, obviously the team wins 16-15 against the Chiefs in a game that was really just offensively dull in the first half. Second half, as soon as JD comes in, it is quite the change in pace, in rhythm, and just energy in general. As it was just kind of a jolt, as they would say, where you just feel awake all of a sudden, and you could hear it in the crowd. Everyone gets excited for this guy, and he is going to have a lot of fans going into preseason week 3, where he is once again going to have his kind of final chance to solidify whether or not he's going to be QB2. And you'd hate to be like, oh, you're allowing just a few games to decide who your backup quarterback is. Kinda, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about what Browning did in a little bit, but JD was so impressive in these past 2 games that it's like, if he does it again in game 3, it's going to be almost undeniable. So with that being said, it is QB2, I think, is up for grabs. So Nick Geddes from Pure Report said that Browning was to be unchallenged by any other quarterback on the roster, Jake Browning, that is. But with Browning sitting out of the preseason opener with a back injury, and after what we've seen from Daniels in 60 minutes of action, basically the 2 second halves, one with the Jets, one against the Chiefs, make no mistake about it, Browning is being challenged by Daniels. JD electrified a Raymond James stadium which up to that point was pretty, hadn't been given much of a reason to make any noise. But he also electrified a Buccaneers offense, which looked lifeless with Browning under center, and also with Baker. But some people they're trying to get into those kind of conversations. I'm like, I'm not there, guys. Let's calm down. JD was remarkable. Don't get me wrong, I am thrilled for him. Peter Plank said here that Jalon Daniels looks like an absolute gem of a find by Jason Licht and the front office. Can feel the vibe shift when he comes into the game. If he's not the QB2 this year, he's going to be the QB2 of the future. This kid has a future in Tampa Bay. If we don't even re-sign Baker, maybe he's QB1 next year. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this has been the story of the preseason so far. Outside of seeing Bane play for the first time, which look at Bane. The picture, he was a monster shove. The clip that's going around right now is him shoving a guy with one arm. He was a menace. He was awesome to watch, and I can't wait to watch him, in the regular season. Just rest him for, maybe he can get some reps next week, but for the most part, I'm just ready to save him for against the Bengals. Maybe he's going to get a sack against Joe Burrow for his first sack of his career. We will see. But back to Jalon Daniels. A really good performance where, yes, he's going up against backups, and, that's why it's hard to measure how good he's actually going to be, when you get to regular season speed. It's very different from preseason speed, which is obviously preseason is still an upgrade over training camp speed, but it's still, there's levels to this. But, Jalon was playing with backup receivers, backup linemen, and was avoiding a lot more negative plays than were happening under Browning, who was just having a rough, almost re-injuring himself on several occasions. So Geddes actually mentioned, they said, sure, Tampa Bay's offensive line didn't give Browning much of a fighting chance on a handful of plays. And he took quite the beating on more than a few occasions, getting sacked 3 times. But it wasn't like Daniels received adequate blocking in front of him either. And when the pocket broke down, Daniels was able to use his legs to make up plays. Browning's status as a veteran backup with experience in a wide zone and boot scheme makes him a natural fit for Zach Robinson's offense, the offensive coordinator. But from what we've seen so far when comparing Browning and Daniels in Tampa Bay's uniform, it's hard to argue that Daniels isn't ahead. And, he has the people's vote. We'll see how he stands with the coach. Before this game, Todd Bowles made it aware that the QB2 spot is open, and Browning said, "Okay, bring it on. I'm used to the competition." He did not help his case. That is for dang sure tonight or last night. Sorry. Buccaneers Wire said there was a marquee difference in how the Bucs offense looked with Daniels at the helm than with the other quarterbacks for Tampa Bay. In Baker Mayfield's 2 drives, the call sheet was particularly conservative. When Mayfield wasn't handing the ball off to a running back, he was just throwing a screen or a quick pass, and Browning had a rough night during a leaky offensive line and 3 sacks. So, yeah, the offense was not doing much. We were getting a lot of special teams action last night because of that, offensive output or lack of the output. And so Bowles got a lot of looks at his defense, which, they played really, really well. They only gave up 1 touchdown, and it was overall kind of the Harrison Butker show for a bit. He was just kicking a ton of field goals, and then he missed the game-winning one. So that was fun to watch at the very least. And but a solid showing from Bowles' defense. Now, when it comes to Daniels and so Josh Quippo from P Report said that no doubt Daniels has shown more in the preseason games thus far, but the team likes Browning's experience, in a wide zone and boot offense where he has and had some success in the past. JD has looked good, but the QB exchanges with the center will give the team pause about moving him up the depth chart. And that's the thing. There were a few fumbled snaps with the center. Some people could say maybe that was the center's fault because of, he was like a backup center, like 3rd, 4th string center that JD was working with. But, at the same time, it does seem like people are also thinking it's partially JD's fault as well. Maybe he's a bit jittery. He's too excited and needs to work on that. But the hope is that Graham Barton, if JD were to be taking snaps from him, there'd be less so of miscommunication there. And again, they have JD taking like first team snaps. He's splitting them with Baker. They were last week at the very least. So that's an exciting thing to at least think about. And then Greg Allman, this is the most interesting part of this whole conversation outside of the excitement for Jalon, is that he says, seems reasonable to think that the Bucs can assume if they were to expose Daniels to the waiver wire, or they'd lose him. So essentially, if they cut him and he were to hit waiver wires where any other team could try and pick him up, someone would pick him up. So in projecting rosters, probably makes sense to assume 3 quarterbacks are going to be on the 53-man roster now, which means 1 less spot for running back 4, tight end 4, wide receiver 6, or offensive line 10, a few spots that still feel unclaimed. If I had to guess, tight end 4 is probably Culp. That probably means that Culp is going to get cut. Because we got obviously Otten at 1, Payne Durham at 2, and Sharp at 3. O'Keefe, it's I guess he's technically a tight end, but I just think if we are keeping JD, we are not probably keeping Culp. You could look at maybe RB4, everyone wants Josh Williams, but is that something that we have to relegate to the practice squad? Maybe. Offensive line 10, we need as many backups for offensive line as possible, considering our history with injuries in that area. So my question is to you guys, which of these options here would you sacrifice in order to keep Jalon Daniels? I think it is, like we said, a foregone conclusion that Jalon will be on this roster. It would be silly to let him go. So what would you give up in order to have him on the team? So that's a decision that the front office is going to be making over the next couple of weeks, and we will watch closely and obviously pay attention to who is standing out in these final weeks of training camp. And we'll pay attention to all those stories, and we'll be updating you here on the channel. But keep subscribing, keep joining the channel, keep watching our videos, and until next video, we will see you then.